He had worked for the company for 12 years. And for 12 years, he'd put in his time. He'd gone in every single morning, put in a full day's work, and taken off. End of the day. But after 12 years, they fired him. Now, it wasn't anything he had specifically done. It was simply just a downsizing, the kind of thing that happens to lots of folks. But this particular company gave him 12 months of severance, which is a big deal. 12 months of cash to prepare himself for the next chapter, the next thing that he was going to do. He came home and told his wife, "Don't worry, everything's going to be fine." Rule number 1, if you have to say, "Don't worry, everything's going to be fine," most things are likely not going to be fine. And in this case, he had talked to a friend and decided that the best way to use this money and the best way to step up to the next chapter was to buy a digital camera, one of those high-end cameras which back in those days was ridiculously expensive. And he bought the camera and he bought a first-class trip to Ireland. And you're probably wondering, why Ireland? Well, he had talked to some folks and they had said the new wave was digital imagery and that all sorts of websites and print material were going to need high-end stock photography. Now, of course, his buddy was talking to him about iStock photo, but he got it in his head that he would fly to Ireland and take photos of Ireland. He was neither a trained photographer nor had he ever been to Ireland. And I don't really know how he picked Ireland as a place. Because seriously, how many brochures and or websites need photos from Ireland? But he took all sorts of photos, brought them home, and then used a chunk of that cash to produce CDs filled with photos, 200 photos from Ireland. He even had the cover all manicured, it looked beautiful, designed, and he had a stack of them. And that's when I met him, because I knew a friend who knew his wife. And his wife said, "Hey, can you come over? Can you bring your friend and let's have dinner?" And so we had dinner as I listened to him share with the stack of DVD or CDs behind him how he was going to make money. I think to this day, had he not moved, he would still have that stack of CDs because he literally sold none of them. This morning we're going to talk about making the most of your blog. And I want to be very clear. We're not going to talk about any get-rich-quick schemes. In fact, nothing of what we're going to cover is going to actually work quickly. So if you're here thinking, I'll spin up a free blog, I'll do something, whatever he has to share in the next 30 minutes, and we're going to just make all sorts of cash, this is the wrong session. For comedy, go see the Kane and Oberlin show. This is where we're going to talk about how you build a platform, which will result in making money off your site, for sure. But it is neither fast nor easy. By the way, that's a picture of Ireland. Doesn't it make the presentation so much better? I got it online for free. Rule number 1, you spin up a blog. And when you spin up a blog, you're thinking, this is my blog. You may even name it. I have a blog. It's called chrislemma.com. You know why it's called chrislemma.com? Because my name's Chris Lemma. So it's really easy. That's my blog. And you may think, well, it's my blog. I can write anything I want. Right? But that's not the case. I've taken my wife on vacations. We've had horrible service. I have an inclination, just like you would. I'm going to go to my blog and write a big, long rant about it. That will not help you. First of all, it won't necessarily bring a lot of traffic to your site, but second of all, what's your end game? Right? What are you looking for your blog to do? What are you looking for that post to do? Instead, what you want to do is focus on always being helpful. Right? Always be helpful. And I'm only going to cover 4 or 5 topics in terms of planning your platform, and these slides are all online, so you don't have to stress too much about writing it down. But it's not hard to remember this. In the choice between a rant and actually making observations, we did go on a tour at one point, and the tour guide was horrific, was horrible. And that inspired me, because I do write on some public speaking stuff, to write a post about 3 lessons you could learn from a nasty travel guide. which actually was ending up trying to be helpful to people rather than just a rant on a travel place, right? You want to be helpful because at the end of the day, when people go, and you can think about your own self, when you go to Google, you have rarely searched for angry rant blog post about X. You've never done that, right? But how many of you have gone to Google and started a query with, how do I? Yeah. And what you're hoping is an angry rant, right? No. No, what you're hoping is that the article is going to help you. You're hoping that you're going to get something. The only time this really kind of backfires on you is when you get something you think this is perfect and you read it and it's written like 7 years ago and everything's outdated, right? Which my friend here who runs WP Beginner, he constantly gets angry comments from people because he writes the post and then 6 years later someone comes back and goes, that's not where the button is, right? Because things change. And so he has to hire staff to literally go back and change where the button is in the post. I don't do that. I just leave a date on my post. And then in the comments when someone goes crazy, I just write, see date. It's a snapshot in time. But the point of what I'm talking about here is to be helpful. To attempt when you sit down to write, to answer a question, to solve a problem, to face a challenge in such a way that someone else may come back and say, wow, that was really helpful. I know what to do now. Notice the call of action isn't to sell anything. It's not to pitch anything. And honestly, my ratio of pitch to being helpful is something on the order of, out of every 100 posts where I'm trying to be helpful, I might pitch once. I don't run a blog to make money. It makes money. I don't run it to make money. I run it to build a platform. And you will develop all sorts of relationship and trust when you build a platform that is anchored by the fact that you're being helpful. And the truth is, you all know how to do all sorts of stuff, right? Some of you are great with pottery, arts, crafts. Some of you work with dogs. Some of you know things about immigration or standing in lines. You know things about the DMV because you work there, you don't. You know things about all sorts of esoteric topics all over the world. And you can be helpful about it by opening up a window and saying, let me walk you into this, and let me see if I can help you with some of this. Always be helpful. Does that make sense? Awesome. Number 2, you have an option. Your option is to focus on you or to focus on others. Rather than ask you directly which you prefer, I'm going to ask you a different question. When you go out to a networking event, or when you go out to a dinner, when you go out to a social gathering, a party of sorts, and you're hanging around, and there's that one guy who goes from group to group, and all he does is talk about himself. Right? You know, he slides into the conversation. All of you were standing there talking about something, and he just kind of gets in there, and then he's like, yeah, you know, what happened last week for me was, and you're like, who invited you here? You start looking around for who's the person that invited this person to the party so we can help them go somewhere else. Have any of you ever thought, I love this random intruder who nonstop talks about themselves at a party? No. Here's the bottom line. If you wouldn't do it at a cocktail party, don't do it on your website. Right? If you wouldn't do it at a cocktail party, don't do it at your website. What would you do at a party? You'd be like, hey, let me introduce you to my friend Syed, right? Let me introduce you to my friend. Let me tell you all about why he's awesome. Other than the fact he wears a shirt often that says, I'm awesome. Right? But you want to do that at a cocktail party. You're like, you haven't met my friend. Oh, I got to tell you about my friend. And what are you doing in that moment? You're taking what you have, which is a platform, a space on the web, and you're saying, let me take my flashlight, let me take my spotlight, and let me direct it onto someone so you can meet them because you ought to know them. Notice it's just one step further of being helpful. You have a light, you can shine it anywhere you want. If you point it to yourself and talk all about yourself all day long, even when your blog is named your name, right? The only people you're going to get on your site are the other people that talk about themselves. When you actually point your light to someone else, a couple things happen. Right? First of all, it highlights that you're not that douche. Right? That's good news. But there's a second thing that happens. When you point your light on someone else, then you send them a note saying, hey, I just wrote a post about you and how awesome you are. And what do? They're like, why don't I send that out to all of my platform, all of my network? Right? And you start borrowing some level of credibility because someone else said, you should go read this guy's post, which sometimes means that other people will get there and go, wow, this is really useful and helpful. I wonder if there's other things here. And all of a sudden, you start bringing traffic to your site. All because you shined a light on a person, you shined a light on a product, you shined a light on a process, you shined a light on a company. It's your light. You can do whatever you want. But if you shine it on others rather than just yourself, you will grow the base of people that are interacting with you. You will grow naturally the number of people who come to read simply because you're being generous with your site. Now, I love generosity. I'm a huge fan of generosity. It's a personal value of mine. But whereas we fight for who gets to pay for lunch or pay for dinner, this has virtually no cost. You can write a blog post about someone else, another company, another person, what people are doing and how awesome they are, and it doesn't cost you a thing. And so there's really no good reason not to do it. But most importantly, it will grow your base. It'll grow the number of people who come back and say, oh, this is interesting. This is useful. At one point, I was trending for a particular topic, which was for WooCommerce consultant. Right? I didn't know this. Someone contacted me for a job, and I'd written enough articles about WooCommerce that they contacted me, and I said, how did you find me? They said, well, I searched for WooCommerce consultant, and I got your site. So I did what we do. Let me go check this out. And I was first. Right? That meant I was above WooTheme's company and their group of people that they recommend for this stuff. I was number one. Now, I could have, in that moment, said, great, I'm going to start hitting up that keyword phrase, and I'm going to start writing more posts, and I'm going to take this entire corner. But the truth was, I didn't actually want to do that much WooCommerce work. How many of you have used WooCommerce? Okay. Are there days where you don't want to do that much WooCommerce work? There are things about it that I love, right? I mean, I wrote a whole bunch of posts about it, but there are other days where I'm like, I don't want this to be the only thing I do. So I called a friend, and I said, hey, Brian, I know you do WooCommerce work on the side, a little consulting stuff. Would you be open for me writing a post about you so that I can actually leverage WooCommerce consultant and send them your way? He was like, sure. And then he spent all day and all night rewriting his website. Right? I mean, it was like 3 a.m. when he's like, okay, I'm ready. Here's the link for the landing page where you could send people. So I wrote a post, right? Need a WooCommerce consultant. Talk to Brian. And then I wrote a whole post about how awesome Brian was. Right? And it worked, right? People started moving. Like, they'd search, they'd get the site, they'd hit the page, they'd go directly to Brian's site. And then about 6 months later, Brian called me and said, okay, how do you turn it off? I need you to turn it off because now I can't even do my full-time job. I'm like, I can't turn it off. It's Google. Right? So you can start adjusting and tweaking. But at the end of the day, the spotlight does a whole lot. And it does a whole lot for other people. And as you do a whole lot for other people, right, those people, you could test this today, right? Walk up to someone, and when you see them, pay attention to them for just a second, and then give them a compliment. One of two things are going to happen. This is the nature of who people are as humans. They will either attempt to give you back a comment that is complimentary as well. Like, well, I like that shirt on you, Chris. Or they will look really awkward because they can't figure out anything nice about you. In which case, that's fun to just watch because they're like all... You have hair. Right? At the end of the day, when you give a compliment, when you're helpful, when you put your spotlight on someone, there's a natural reaction that people have, which is to give back. You give, they give back. Right? Today at lunch, find someone, give them a compliment, watch what happens. They can't help themselves. And the same thing happens when you're building your platform. When you're building your platform, when you share and put that light on someone else, and you share your traffic and your whatever that group of people are, when you share it with other people, invariably they will turn around and be like, well, okay, let me go write a post about how awesome Chris is. Right? And you're like, well, why, thank you. You didn't have to. Right? But I'm sure glad you did. Because it grows the base of people that are coming around to your platform. Does that make sense? All right. The third and maybe most useful thing I can tell you about building a platform, and you should understand connecting the dots here. When you build a platform, you have the trust, you have the relationship to monetize that. But it starts by building the platform. It doesn't start by trying to make money off other folks, right? How many of you have gone to a website where before you've read a single word, a pop-up comes on saying, sign up for life so I can send you more stuff? Right? And you're like, I just got here. I don't even know who you are or what you're doing, and you're asking me to sign up for life. Right? You build relationship and trust to build a platform. And as you build the platform, then you have the opportunity to monetize that if you like. And there are a lot of ways you can monetize it which doesn't even cost other people. But the thing that has helped me the most, I stepped into the WordPress community. I've been using WordPress since 2005. But I didn't step into the community until 3.5 years ago. It was actually at this conference. Right? I applied to speak at this conference 3 years ago, and I had to do this phone call interview with Jeffrey Zinn, and I'm so nervous, right? Because he's like, I've never heard of you. I don't know if you've ever been in a phone call setting or something where you're asking to speak and help other people, and they're like, I've never heard of you, and there's no good comeback for that. I've thought for years. I'm like, you're right. But I do speak publicly in other venues, and I have been around this community for a while, and I'm willing to do just about anything you need. So he said, well, we have a 101 thing that we could put you in. And so I said, okay, right? But honestly, I stepped into the WordPress community when there was years of people who had done amazing things already. I stepped into a community that had years of popular people that had platforms, and they'd done things already. And I had stepped into a time in the community where there were tons of blogs already. Who needs one more blog? So I decided I'm going to go where other people won't. Here's what I did. I bought every drag and drop theme that existed at that time. 5, 6, 7 of them. It costs money. Most of you would buy one and be done. I bought all of them. I didn't ask anyone for anything free. And I analyzed all of them. And then I wrote a comparison of all of them. I did a small review of each and a comparison scoring them. Done. That post has gotten 60,000 views in the last 18 months. It brings all the boys to the yard. It was a post that is so long, right, that most people look at it and go, I'm not doing that. I mean, at first you had to pay money. Second, you had to spend all that time. And third, you had to write it all, right? And then, of course, just so you're clear, right, it's going to get outdated. And people are going to come back and go, well, you haven't added this one. You haven't looked at this one. And this thing changed. The button moved. And you're like, look at the dates. But still, by creating a post that no one else had created, I could take a small corner. And when that worked, what'd I do? I started looking at membership plugins. I wrote some reviews, and then I wrote a comparison. And I wrote a little chart on how to pick the right one. Another 55,000 views on a single post over the course of 18 months. When you start a blog and there's only like 60 page views in a day, and it's that way for months, and then one day you're like, I had 100 page views today. You do a dance. I would show my wife. I'd be like, look, it hit 100. She said, it's okay, it'll go down again. She is cold, right? It didn't matter. Eventually when I got up to 1,000, and then, a couple thousand, and eventually 5,000 a day, she would literally look at it. She'd be like, has it come down yet? I'm like, what's wrong with you, woman? But the way you do it is by going after the places where other people won't. Where there's cost, where there's effort, go there. Because if you write a post that says 10 great themes for learning management systems, and all you do is grab screenshots of 10 themes that you found on another article or another site, and then you write a little blurb with a price tag and a blurb and a price tag, and you put affiliate links on all those, and you're like, I hope this makes me money, you're doing it wrong. I hate saying you're doing it wrong, but you're doing it wrong. Because you're not doing anything that anyone else hasn't already done or will do. You want to build a platform, go where they won't go. Do the hard things that they won't want to do. Go deep in an area, go broader than anyone in an area, spend time, energy, and money in an area, do things that other people look at and say, that's hard. And when you have that instinct of going, that's too hard, push into that. Because the payoff is huge. The payoff is huge because it gives you a corner you can take that other people look at and go, that's just too hard of a corner, I don't want to go and take it from him. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And lastly, I wrote about this the other day, but every time I step into a venue like this to speak, every time I sit down at my computer to write, I have to remind myself that the hero of the story that I'm participating in is not me. I'm Yoda, which, by the way, if you know Yoda, he's awesome. But I'm not Luke. You're Luke. My job is to come alongside you and make you better. My job is to come alongside you and make you win. My job is to give you the opportunity and the options and the information, the advice, the help, and the encouragement to help you get to a place you didn't think you could get. That's my job. If I start forgetting and thinking I'm the hero of the story, it's very easy to alienate an audience. Imagine if I came into this room and I sat here and I started looking at you and I started telling you about how much money my website makes. Right? And I'm doing it out of some insecurity that suggests that I need to win you over, and the only way I can win you over is by focusing on my credentials, my expertise, my knowledge. And I come in here and I spend the first 20, 30 minutes talking all about me and why you should listen to me. The result of that interaction is simply this. You will realize very quickly that you aren't me. You will realize very quickly that whatever it is I've done and whatever success I may have had, you likely don't have and won't have. And you will walk away dismayed and frankly a little unhappy about the whole experience. But if I don't walk up here and start talking about all the things I've done, if I walk here and talk about all the things you can do and encourage you and give you some simple steps for how you can win, if I come alongside to be your cheerleader, the one that encourages you, and give you some simple topics, then you listen and you say, I can do that. What he's talking about isn't impossible. I too can make money off my site. And you stay engaged, and in the long run, you go out the door and you win. And then hopefully you send me a little note or comment that says, hey, thanks, that was really helpful. If you've seen Rocky, right? Rocky's the fighter, but the guy next to Rocky is Mick. And Mick, as odd and crazy as he is, right? Mick is the one who encourages and challenges and pushes Rocky to go to places that Rocky wasn't sure he could go. When you manage a blog, when you take care of that blog, when you write on that blog, you're Mick. You're not Rocky. When you stand in front of an audience, you focus on being Yoda, not Luke. And when you do that, what you get to do, the privilege that you get to do, is you get to help someone else be the hero of the story. And trust me when I tell you, when you help others win, when you help others succeed, they will circle back and ask for more. Over and over and over again. They will become loyal fans. Ridiculously loyal fans. And at the end of the day, if you want to build a platform, if you want to ultimately monetize that site, you're going to want loyal fans. I have some affiliate links on my site. I have other friends who've just come over and they've read all the different how-tos, comparisons, helps. They've read the articles. And in those particular articles, there weren't affiliate links. And it didn't matter because what they said was they'd write me an email or they'd send me a little Facebook message or a DM on Twitter and they would say, I'm about to buy this. Please tell me you have an affiliate link and send it to me because I want you to get the money. Do you realize how much effort it takes To decide not to just go to a site and buy it, but to stop and to contact someone and to ask them for a link and to wait on it when you're like totally like, I just want to buy it, I want to buy it now. And you're like, but I'm going to wait so I can get a special link. That's the kind of fan, right? That's the kind of loyal person who says, yes, I want you to win because you're helping me win. And you're like, great, let me go get you a link, here you go. Does that make sense? You're not the hero of the story. These 4 things will have the consequence that you will, by definition, stand out. There is no way, if you do these 4 things, and I guarantee, this is money back. If you try this, and it does not work for you, and you do not stand out, you come back, and I will give you your WordCamp fee prorated, because you only came to 1 session of mine. So it's like $20 divided by like 20 sessions. I'll give you the $1 that you deserve for the time we've spent here. I will give it back to you, right? To say, okay, money back guarantee. I guarantee you this. If you do these 4 things on your site, you will develop a platform. You will stand out. Because there's a whole bunch of people that are doing it a different way. And if you do this, you will stand out. And the result of standing out, right, is that ultimately you will build trust. Anyone who makes money without a trusting relationship will make it once. Anyone who makes money without trust will make it once. Anyone who creates trust first will make tons of it. So you need to spend your time building trust. I have a friend of mine, Steve Zengit, who's in the other room right now. He's doing an intro course. And he likes to say, I don't have clients, I have friends. And I laugh because I say, I don't have friends, I just have all the clients in the world, right? But in reality, I do have a lot of friends, and they're fantastic people. But I'm driven by one underlying perspective, one underlying worldview. And some people get this wrong. Because in the option of making money and making friends, right? Some people use friends to make money. You know what I'm talking about, right? Anyone ever asked you if you could sit down for a short meeting to talk about knives? I'm going to let that sink in for a second. Some people use friends to make money. And I use money to make friends. I use money in the form of buying hosting or in the form of buying plugins, in the form of buying imagery for my site. I use money in the form of taking people out, whatever, to build the relationships because I'm building a platform, a network of people that I love to hang out with. And that I know downstream at some point a door will open, an opportunity will open where I get to step through it. My choice. But there are people who will use people to make money. That's what happens when you're not building trust. You don't want to do that. You want to use your money, you want to use your time, you want to use your site to build friendships. As you do that, you will build trust. And when you build trust, then you can see results. On my site, 33% of the money that I make is through affiliate revenue. That means that there's a link on my site in the middle of a comparison post or at the end of a post about a particular plugin or a company, whatever it is, I put a link, and that link sends people somewhere. They pay the same price when they go to buy whatever I'm talking about. But when I send them and they buy it over there, that company, because I was reducing their cost of sale, they send me a small kickback. Right? That's affiliate. And I make about 33% of my money on my site that way. 66% of the revenue I generate from my site is completely indirect. It's never happening on the site. There is some ebooks you can buy on the site, right? And so those make up about 1%. The direct revenue from my site is about 1%. Here's the crazy thing, right? This math only talks about percentages, but let me be very clear with you. On about 4 hours a week, and if I add the time it takes to write blog posts, it's about 8 hours a week, I run a 6-figure coaching business. Off 8 hours a week, of which 4 of it is writing on the blog. How does that work? Because I'm building trust and I'm being helpful. And as I'm building trust and being helpful, people say, I've read your stuff for 6 months. I totally get the kind of guy you are. I want to work with you. What's it going to cost? By the way, when someone says, what's it going to cost? You win. Right? Because they're not saying, I would like to do this and I would like to do it at this price, right? They're saying, whatever it is, because I've spent time on your site, I like who you are, I trust you, I know you're not going to hose me. I know you're going to do what's right. And because of that, I'm willing to spend money here. I got an email the other day saying, okay, I want the coaching and money is no object. I won't take advantage of that. But it's a great thing to hear. Honestly. Because someone's saying, whatever it is, I know you're worth it. You know how they know it's worth it? Because they've come and spent time on the site. Because they've read stuff and they've said, I just can't, I know you're going to be helpful to me. Right? That's the 66% of the money that's completely indirect. Now, there are direct ways to make money, right? Direct ways to make money. You can make money off all of these. In fact, I'm just getting ready to spin up 2 other sites, and these 2 other sites will actually sell a lot more ebooks and a membership. And these sites will be focused on monetization. chrislemma.com is not focused on monetization, though it generates a lot of indirect revenue. Right? But these things are very targeted for very specific audiences. You can make money off memberships. You can make money off ebooks and courses. You can have digital products, which may be different than an ebook. It may be an audio podcast that you charge for. You can even get small jobs, really small jobs. Just people sign up and say, I want a logo, I want this, I want that. Boom, they hit a button and you give them something. And you can even make money on answers, which is awesome. I use a website called clarity.fm. And clarity.fm means you can go to clarity.fm/chrislemma and you can schedule an appointment for me to meet with you and answer a question you have about a membership plugin or about starting a business or about anything else. And it's $400 an hour, but I never have conversations that last an hour. My average call takes about 26 minutes. If you spend 15 minutes on the phone, it costs you $100, and people are like, awesome, because I got what I want. You can go read the comments, and people are like, he was fast, and he totally answered my questions. Because I'm not looking to keep the call going long, right? That's a bad cab driver that takes you the long way. You just want to get to the point, get done, get it off, and they're like, that was awesome, I'll do it again. Because you're building trust. My name's Chris Lemma. You can find me on Twitter at Chris Lemma. I write a daily blog over at chrislemma.com. And if you have any questions about helping you succeed in building your platform, I'd love to talk to you sometime today. Thank you.
Okay, guys, so we ended a little bit early, but feel free to help yourselves to the treats and the